It used to be 3 to 4 years to build a new nuclear power plant in the United States. You know what it is now? 25 to 40 years.
I talk about this all the time.
You do? Okay.
Well, about like the fact that nothing gets done in this country because these just obscene levels of graft and bureaucracy, red tape. We can't build home housing for the homeless.
It's totally right, though, because bureaucracy stops new housing construction. It is the chokehold in our country.
What is up, everyone? In this clip from the Club Random podcast, we're diving into an extremely heated debate between Bill Maher and Vivek Ramaswamy that perfectly captures why politics is absolutely ruining this country. To the point where Vivek just practically admits that the current political system is practically just ruining this country. So without spoiling anything, let's just get into this clip where, of course, I'll be giving you my unfiltered take as we go through it.
So the premise of my... I have two premises.
If you could get through
I'm
that.
the anti-bureaucracy candidate. 70, but you can't be scared when I say things like, I want to fire 75% of the federal employee headcount. I just do. Most organizations.
I mean,
think of your organization.
Government is
90% of the people, 25% of the people do 90% of the work.
No,
That's the answer.
No, my operation is lean.
Okay, fine. It's not the federal
They're
government.
all good.
In the federal government, 25% of the people do 90% of the work.
Because the federal government, of course, does not have to answer to anybody.
And there's no meritocracy.
Right.
Because they have these civil service protections.
There is at certain levels.
Minimal.
And look, there is a lot. I don't know, this number...
And so if you're anti-bureaucracy with me, join me in not being scared when I say the things that we need to do to fix it.
No, what I'll say is this. The figure you come up with, 75%, is what I would call rectum derived. In other words, you pulled it out of your ass. So I don't know where we're getting that number. But I will say this. The federal government, the deep state that you're also paranoid about.
The deep state exists. It's the bureaucracy.
Of course it does.
It is the bureaucracy.
Right, and most of it is people processing forms and issuing passports and doing things that make the lives of citizens feel like they're living not in a third world country.
And this is how a nation ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Really? This is how a nation ends, with having my passport processed?
So here's my litmus test.
Yeah, that's how a nation...
George Washington, I think so. George Washington,
you would agree
Alexander Hamilton walking the streets of this country today, would they be proud or appalled of that bureaucracy? I think they would be appalled because they never imagined
I agree.
that existed, right?
The Department of Homeland Security is a monstrosity.
It's a disaster.
Right.
Total disaster.
I know. But there is also
the
a
CDC
need for an...
is a disaster. The FDA is a disaster.
Absolutely.
Right?
The what one?
The FDA.
The FDA.
The FDA
totally
is a colossal disaster.
Of course.
I've dealt with the FDA.
I think this is a great spot to pause because both of Vivek and Bill are absolutely nailing it here. The part where they talk about where the federal government doesn't answer to anyone, no meritocracy, civil service protections that shield incompetence, this is the stuff that makes you want to scream into a pillow. It's like we've created this massive, unaccountable beast that exists solely to feed itself. And don't even get me started on these specific agencies that they're calling out, like Homeland Security, the CDC, the FDA. These are supposed to be the pillars of public safety and health, but instead they're quite literally dumpster fires wrapped in red tape. Let's take Homeland Security for example. This is the agency that was created after 9/11 to, secure the homeland. But what do we get? TSA agents confiscating shampoo bottles while missing actual threats. In the CDC, during the pandemic, they couldn't even decide whether masks worked or not. One day it's don't wear them, and the next it's wear to. Meanwhile, the FDA takes years to approve life-saving drugs, but somehow fast-tracks opioids that end up fueling a national crisis. It's almost like these agencies are competing for the title of the most dysfunctional. And the worst part about this is none of this is an accident. These agencies are bloated, inefficient, and unaccountable by design. Why? Because when you have a system that rewards bureaucracy over results, you get exactly this: a government that can't govern. It's not about serving the public, it's about protecting jobs, budgets, and power. And who pays the price? We do. The taxpayers, the citizens who just want safe food, effective medicine, and a secure country. To be honest, I think this is the reason why people are so fed up with this current political environment. It's not just about cutting budgets or firing employees. It's about fundamentally reforming a system that's broken at its core. We need accountability, we need meritocracy, and we need leaders who are willing to take a sledgehammer to this bureaucratic monstrosity. Because if we don't, we're just simply going to keep spinning our wheels while the country continues to burn. Of course, you can let me know what you think. Is it time for a complete overhaul, or are we stuck with this mess forever? Let me know in the comments below, but this is an excellent point, and let's definitely get into these others.
I've gotten 5 medicines approved
Yes.
that I've worked on that are now approved.
Right.
I
You
can
know
speak
that one from
first
the
personally.
inside, right?
We could have developed those at a tiny fraction of the cost. And you know what? Who likes the FDA?
And you didn't because of
Because
government?
the FDA.
The
100%.
FDA.
Because of the frickin' drug administration. And the answer is that Big Pharma wants to keep it that way because that stops new upstarts from bringing competition to market. And so this is the private-public sector. It's not a Republican problem or a Democrat problem. It's crony capitalism in the guise of bureaucracy.
But how the heck
using it to stifle competition in the market?
I couldn't agree more. But I mean, all the people with their snouts at the trough, the reason why nothing gets done, we tried to build high-speed rail here in California. I mean,
lobbying. Disaster.
It was 7 times the cost of what it would cost to build it in France, which is not exactly unknown
to high cost
to
unions,
labor
right
issues. And
the
so
funny thing is,
finally
France
they
is
just
making us look bad. Even nuclear
just
power
gave
plants,
up.
same thing. They just give up.
You know
Nuclear
what?
power plants in France, 5 to 8 years,
because
20 years
the
in this
money
country.
went to consultants.
Yeah.
Everybody needs so many consultants. Like nobody could even fucking know how to do their own job. They have to have somebody consult.
This is it. You're not on the same side of this,
we're
brother.
definitely on that.
But this
So
is the
much of
heart of my camp. So when you say deep state, don't say it so like condescendingly.
Well,
understand that this is actually the
Okay,
essence
but-
of the real threat to liberty as it plays itself
but
out.
let's say
and
you're
economy, and to
okay.
merit.
So let's say you're 75%, which is a pie in the sky wish that'll never come true anyway. So
Well, it's going to come true. I'll tell you. how it comes.
not to that number. Let's say it's maybe you're off, but maybe your numbers in your head are just off by a little bit. So let's say we get to 50%. Like we don't need half the government. That could be true.
Awesome, and I think this is probably the best statement of this entire clip that quite literally summarizes everything. Vivek throws out this idea that we don't need almost most of the government, and eventually Maher, as you just saw, agrees with him and gives specifically almost half of the government. And to be very honest, I don't think they're wrong. I mean, you guys can just think about it. How much of what the federal government does actually needs to be done by the federal government? How much of it is just redundant, inefficient, or downright unnecessary? I'll tell you, it's a lot. And the thing that I want to make sure is very clear, this isn't about cutting jobs or slashing budgets for the sake of it. It's about asking the fundamental question, what is the government actually for? Is it to serve the people, or is it just to create a never-ending cycle of bureaucracy that exists solely to justify its own existence? Because right now, it feels more like the latter. We've got agencies overlapping, programs duplicating efforts, and entire departments that seem to exist just to process paperwork. It's like we've built a Rube Goldberg machine of governance. Overly complicated, inefficient, and prone to be breaking down. And to be honest, cutting 50% of the government does sound extreme, but when you look at how bloated and dysfunctional it's become, it starts to make sense. Do we really need that many middle managers? Do we need that many consultants? And do we need that many forms, permits, and approvals for every little thing? The answer is no, at least in my opinion. What we need is a government that's lean, efficient, and focused on actually solving problems and definitely not creating them. And the funny thing is, even if we agree that 50% of the government could go, the real challenge is figuring out which 50% and of course making it happen. Because let's be honest, the second you start talking about cutting anything, someone's going to scream, but what about insert project here, whatever latest stupid project they're working on now. And suddenly you're stuck in the same political gridlock that got us here in the first place. So let's definitely not kid ourselves, because this is not something that's going to be easy, and the people who benefit from this bloated system are the politicians, lobbyists, and bureaucrats. And they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep it intact. Of course, as always, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Is cutting 50% of the government a pipe dream, or is it exactly what we need to get this country back on track? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.